Let's move quickly through the rest of these. Isaiah chapter 45, next chapter. I'm going a little over for those of you in my study, so you're just going to have to permit me tonight to go a little bit longer in this study. Chapter 45 of Isaiah, let's look at verse, I want to drop down to verse 5. Same thing, basically, that God has been saying to Israel all along. I am the Lord, and there is no other besides me. Now he doesn't even have to say small g or lowercase g. He just wipes the matter clean by saying there are no others besides me. All right, there's no one else beside me. There is no God. Beside me, there is no God. And the Hebrew up here says there's no Elohim, right? There is no other Elohim, which again, notice in the English, we have a capital G for this rendering, but in the previous passage of Isaiah chapter 44, verse 6, it was from, at least out of the ESV, there is no small G-O-D. Which lets us know that no matter which way in your English you put it, capital G or lowercase g, remember this is the case that the Jehovah's Witnesses are trying to make from John 1:1. If I can go back to that real quick. In the beginning was Word, Word was with God, and the Word was a little g-o-d. They're trying to make the case that this must be a little case g, a smaller case g, because Jesus is not Almighty God. He is a lowercase God. He's a little God. He's a demigod. He's a mini-me. And he's some form of God that is not quite the same as the capital G. But you know what? Even if they would have put a capital G with their indefinite article, right? In the beginning was Word was with God, and the Word was a capital G-O-D. It still would have been bad theology, right? And in fact, it would have been really bad. So God says in Isaiah chapter 45, verse 5, I am God, there is no other besides me, there is no capital G-O-D. There's no capital G-O-D, and there's no little lowercase G-O-D. So we can see this if we just keep moving. Let's quickly go to Isaiah chapter 46. You can see I'm just going chapter by chapter. We're going to dead end at chapter 48. We're going to skip chapter 47. But in chapter 46, and scroll down to verse 9, God says, remember the former things of old, for I am God, right? I am El. In the Hebrew, as opposed to Elohim. I am God and there is no other, right? I am God, there is none like me. Anochi El, ve'ein od Elohim. So now he uses both Hebrew titles. Anochi El, I am God, I am El. Ve'ein od, and there is no, and then he says Elohim. There's no Elohim, and there's none like me. There is none like me. So we can't have another capital G-O-D next to God, either before or after him. And we can't have a little G-O-D next to God. He doesn't recognize any, right? God doesn't recognize anyone next to him as a capital G-O-D or a little G-O-D. And let's finish out tonight's study by looking very quick at Isaiah 48, verse 12 this time. Let's just drop down. I'm sorry, not 47. Let's go to 48, verse 12, not 47. 48, verse 12, God says right here, listen to me, O Jacob and Israel, whom I called. I am he, I am the first, and I am the last. So, what can we gain from looking at these passages in the book of Isaiah and comparing them to the Jehovah's Witnesses rendering of, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was this little God, this God-like creature. According to Isaiah and God's own confession, there are no God-like creatures next to God that are allowed to create everything except God and himself, ostensibly. There's no God-like creature that exists next to God that has the power to create everything, right? This is Jehovah's Witnesses' confession. All things came into existence through this little G-O-D, and apart from him, not even one thing, which presumably includes himself. So he didn't create himself. God created him, and then he created everything else. But yet God says in the book of Isaiah over and over again, I am God. I'm the first and the last. I am the only one. I recognize no other one beside me, either before me or after me. There's no one else going to come up after me. I'm not going to create. I mean, what's going on? If God created this little God, you can tell I'm kind of heated now. If God, capital G, created this little mini-me, this little version of God, little G-O-D, then why in the book of Isaiah didn't God recognize him back then? I am God, and there's this other little God next to me, and he's the creator. And you're going to learn more about it when you read John's chapter. Right? I'm filling in for what Isaiah should have written. But Isaiah doesn't write any of that nonsense. Why not? Because there is no little G-O-D next to God, and there's no capital G-O-D next to God, God forbid. There is no other God yet our own God. And therefore, the conclusion is that Jesus must be equal with the capital G-O-D in his status of being. Not in his status of person, but in his status of being. With that, let's draw our commentary to a close.